This video is going to walk you through some examples of some data analysis from previous assignments and hopefully give you a clearer view of what's expected in terms of the data analysis part of your assignment. So the first example here, the student has found some data on how the temperature of two stainless steel and a cast iron pot have changed over time, and it's about heat retention. You'll notice that the first thing that the student has done has given us a brief summary of how the data in the graph below was collected by the scientists from the source that they found. This is necessary so that the person who's reading the assignment, who hasn't read the article that you've read, has some understanding about the experiment and the data that has been collected and what it means. The next thing they've done is displayed the results. Now, this student has just snipped the original graph from the source. They haven't regraphed the data themselves, they've just snipped the graph from the source, but they have renamed it Figure 1 and given it a caption. Now, it's important that you know that all graphs and images in assignments need to be captioned, which means underneath the figure, and they're called figures. They're not called graphs or images, they're all called figures, as opposed to if it was a table, then you title the table, which means you put a title above the table, Table 1, and what it shows. The only thing wrong with this is there should be an in-text reference after the figure title. She has got the in-text reference up here, so she probably hasn't been penalised for that in this case. All the data that's on the graph is relevant, so there's no need for her to highlight anything in particular because it's all relevant. The next thing she does is she goes on to analyse the data, and you'll see that she has an introductory sentence that says Figure 1 shows the change in temperature of 2.5 litres and 5 litres of water in stainless steel and iron pots over time. So it's just an introductory sentence of what the graph is showing. Then she goes on to make a statement about the relationship or pattern that she sees. The graph shows that the stainless steel pot was more effective in retaining heat over time than the iron pot. At 2 minutes, 2.5 litres of stainless steel was at 2.5 litres of water in stainless steel is at 59 degrees, while the cast iron's water is 10 degrees lower at 49. That's called exemplifying the data, giving specific values from the graph. So she's made a statement about the pattern she sees and then given some backup evidence from the graph. That's absolutely necessary. Then the last thing that she's done is she's tried to use some scientific background to explain the pattern that she sees. This gap occurs because stainless steel has a lower ionic strength than iron, making its resistance to heat change higher due to slow current as a result of atoms moving around slowly. And she has an in-text reference for that, so she hasn't come up with that herself. She's found that idea or that bit of content somewhere. Although this characteristic means that the stainless steel pot will not heat up as fast, the pot requires less energy to heat its contents and can continue cooking even after the heat is removed. This evidence justifies the research question. That's poorly worded. You don't justify a research question, you answer it. So this evidence answers the research question that stainless steels can retain heat better than iron ones. So her research question obviously was around is stainless steel or iron better at retaining heat? The next example is about tensile strength of pure titanium compared to a titanium alloy. So I think the research question for this one was, how does the tensile strength of pure titanium compare to grade 5 titanium alloy? For use in medical implants, I think it may have been. So once again, there's a little summary of method up the top. She states that no method was given. So if you can't find how they got the data they got that you found, you must state that there was no method given, and this is a limitation of the source. Now, she has regraphed the data, so her source probably had a lot more data than what's shown here, and she's just taken the relevant data and regraphed that so it's obvious, the relationship. So you can see the red column versus the blue column quite obviously. So she's also got the figure 1 underneath, which is good, and you notice that she also has the in-text reference there. So once again, she's described the trends in the data. She's saying the data outlines the higher tensile strength of grade 5 titanium compared to grade 2 titanium. The yield and tensile strength are measured by whatever. The pure titanium has a yield strength of this and blah, blah, blah. So she's exemplified again by giving data from specific data to back up her statement. So she has not tried to explain in chemical terms the trend. She has referred to how this allows her to answer the research question, but she doesn't actually have a scientific argument to explain the trend. So she would have been marked down for that. Now, right while we're on that, we'll just go to the marking criteria. So this is what we're looking at. Systematic and effective analysis of data demonstrated by thorough identification of relevant trends, patterns and relationships. Well, she's definitely done that. But it's the second part that she hasn't done, which is insightful interpretation of the energy evidence demonstrated by justified scientific arguments. So she hasn't created a justified scientific argument for why the trend occurs. So she would not have got that highest level for that. However, she has said the aluminium added to the titanium alloy increases the metal's strength as it is a lightweight, strong element. So there's a little bit of an attempted explanation there. The vanadium added to the titanium alloy has the best strength-weight ratio in all engineered materials, hence the strength of the alloy is significantly increased. She hasn't actually gone on to talk about the structure and why those things are true. All right, so she will probably get the second grade. Oh, I don't know what just happened there. Which is just a reasonable scientific argument rather than a justified scientific argument. Something really weird's going on, so let's just ignore that thing. Okay, one more to look at. So this one is about, this was from a grade 12 one. She's got the summary of method up the top, which just says where she found the article, what the paper was about, and she hasn't needed to give a summary of the method because it was a standard method. So she's just stated the standard method that was used to do it. You'll see she's highlighted the relevant data because she's just snipped a table straight from the source, and not all of the data in the table is relevant. So she's highlighted the relevant data. You'll see the table is titled, which means above, not captioned below. Then she has some analysis. So she said table 1 demonstrates that polyester fibres have a much higher level of tenacity than cotton fibres. That's her statement about the pattern or relationship she sees. Then she goes on to exemplify it. PES has a tenacity value of this, whereas cotton is this. The difference can be connected to the higher levels of crystallinity in polyester as it contains one less ring structure. You don't have to understand any of this, but that is an explanation of why PES has a higher tenacity than cotton, right? Linked to the structure of the two chemicals. The third thing that you need to discuss is the limitations of the sources, or the evidence. So sometimes the limitation is linked to the evidence and sometimes it's linked to the source, most usually the source. She's said this comes from the Journal of Natural Fibres, which is a credible journal, so that strengthens the evidence's reliability. The article was published in 2012, making it 10 years old. That means it's not quite as current as it possibly could be, so that detracts from its validity. The authors have PhD or higher, so they are authorities in the field, so that makes the data reliable. There's no evident bias, she mentions that. And so she's saying, all things considered, this data allows a clear response to the research question. So that limitation is a little bit of an evaluation of how good this data is for answering the research question. So you want to set up your analysis of evidence very similarly to the way these three have. So evidence, summary of method, put the evidence in, analyse the evidence, and have a look at what limitations the evidence might have. Hope that helps, but as always, just ask if you're not sure.